Good morning and welcome to Jobcare Live. My name's Rowley. I work at Jobcare, but I will be your host this morning. We've got a really interesting morning ahead of us. We're starting off this morning with a panel discussion, kind of focused on interviews and kind of how to approach them, how to kind of figure out our mindset, why we do it. We'll be asking lots of your questions that we've already submitted to our panelists. And after that, if you've registered, we also will kind of break out into workshops that are on separate links. And there we're going to have kind of break out into a few different sessions. So that's going to be great. So hopefully you'll be able to stick around for that as well. They start at 11:15. So already seeing tons of people saying hi in the comments. So please feel free to jump in. Oh, Charles is there. Charles, long time no see. Shannon, Gary, Richard, Vittorio, Eleni, Rosie, Jordan, Simone, Deepa, Eamon, Fran, Hein, Victoria. Oh, the list is going on. But anyway, that's loads of you. Good morning. You're all very welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Feel free to, so people have already submitted questions. We're going to be working through those, but feel free to make a comment and ask questions in the comment section. We will get to some comment questions later on in the session. But first of all, I'm going to introduce everyone who's joining us on our panel today. This morning, I've got Claire Walsh joining us, Sinead Walsh, no relationship, and Barbara Januszewska, and Paul Rothwell. Good morning. How are you all?
Morning. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning.
Do you mind if I go around and just ask yourselves to introduce yourselves and give us a little a little minute on who you are? Claire, do you mind starting? Oh, I can't hear you, Claire. Hang on.
A fabulous start. Can you hear me now?
It is what it is. Yeah.
Thank you. So, good morning, everybody. My name is Claire. I currently work as a global HR business partner at a tech company called Zendesk, based in Dublin, but at the moment I'm based at home. Very excited to be here today and love talking about interviewing and everything to do with it, because it definitely has changed over the last number of years and how it works and how it happens. So really happy to be here today.
Great, thanks for that. Sinead, if I can bring you up.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Sinead. I work for Fidelity International, which are an asset manager based in Dublin city centre, but I'm not obviously there at the moment. I am at home. I have worked for Fidelity for the last, nearly 6 years. I head up their talent acquisition team for what we call corporate enablers for the UK and Ireland, and been in recruitment for about 10 years. And prior to that, I was in financial services.
Great, thanks for that. Barbara?
Yes, hello. My name is Barbara Januszewska. I'm an EMCC accredited coach, personal leadership and executive coach, and career coach with over 16 years of experience in business, leadership. That also includes building, rebuilding, hiring teams, and helping people grow in the roles. I currently help people with their path to success. So I come from a customer success space, and that's how I was working with my customers in the past. I work now with individuals and leaders to create success in their lives and approach their goals and dreams with confidence.
Thank you, Barbara. And Paul?
Yeah, good morning, folks. My name is Paul Rothwell. I'm a career civil servant in the twilight of my career, looking forward to retiring next year. I have over 20 years experience in HR and L&D, and also in the recruitment space in the civil service. I currently work in the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, in the Civil Service HR division, and in the Senior Public Service unit of that division, where I have responsibility for executive coaching for the top civil servants, and I run the Civil Service Graduate Development Programme. Glad to be with you. You, Rowley.
Right, you are on mute now.
Oh, excellent. So before we get started, I would love to kind of get a sense from you guys, kind of where you see the industry and kind of, because we've had a lot of change. I think that might be good. If I can go to you, Paul, because you're still up there.
Yeah, in terms of the just the recruitment space, Rolly? When you say the industry, is that what you're asking? Yeah.
Yeah. It would, anything that you kind of see in HR in your own industry, or any changes you've kind of noticed? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, certainly in terms of the civil service, there is still great interest in people coming into the civil service. Like most people probably are not aware, the civil service consists of approximately 40 different organizations, ranging in size from, say, the biggest, like something like the Department of Social Protection, where they might have 7,000 employees, down to something like the Office of the Ombudsman for the Children, which might have 12 employees. And there's a fabulous range of opportunities within those departments. And something that I think is particularly relevant in relation to those on the call today, that there is no age restriction in relation to those coming into the civil service. Like on my graduate development program, I have people joining the program and they're in their 50s. They've had a career elsewhere, and simply by virtue of the fact that they have had a degree in their back pocket for the last 35 years, they are actually eligible to apply for the civil service as a graduate. So it's great to have that mix of, people coming straight from college, but also those with life experience and in other industries coming into the civil service. It's a great opportunity and great mix.
But just to cap, there is an age cap in terms of the statutory retirement age.
Oh, right? Of course, yeah. Like we're not taking in pensioners.
Okay.
Certainly up until pension age, there's absolutely no restriction. And then just mention as well, related to that, there is only one grade in the civil service that people cannot be recruited externally into. Every other grade, right up to Secretary General, who runs government departments, can be an external appointment. So it means that, if you've been a CEO of something and you feel you could run a government department, there will be opportunity for you.
Oh, that's interesting. I wasn't aware of that. Great.
Yes.
Barbara, what are you seeing from a kind of coaching and kind of helping kind of people perspective? It must have been quite. I hope you've had a lot of clients over the past year.
Yeah, it's good because I started a year ago in the coaching space, but actually it was one of the reasons why I did it, because I went through a lot of training in the coaching space. As I mentioned, I'm accredited and certified, because I could see how important it is in people's life to have someone who supports them. And with COVID, so many things changed. So on the one side, it opened a lot of opportunities because the remote and hybrid work style allow people to actually apply everywhere, like across country even. You don't have to be in the location. At the same time, the competition is now much stronger because, for example, until recently in Ireland, it was, for example, some people with some language skills, they were in demand. And now, because companies start recruiting from other countries also because of the remote working style, the competition is a little bit bigger. And also the individual lives, yes, because this changes also a lot, the situation that we have currently. The people start questioning their lifestyle and the work-life balance, or not existing work-life balance. They look for new opportunities to have a better life. And this is a mix of emotions, a mix of excitement, but also fears, because it's just stepping out from a comfort zone and going out there and then really looking for something new. And also like remote and video calls. Yeah, so remote working style and video calls, they also are something was before not so common. And now people have to get used to this working style and interviewing style. So there's a little bit more anxiety around that. How can I show myself like only on camera? How can I speak to others? How can I show up strongly if it's only a video? So there's a mix of all possible elements, and it needs a little bit of work, but it's doable, and you can gain confidence in the approach and plan the approach efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, even the fact that we're doing this morning, this would have been something that we would have done in person in our office. You know, invited you in, put you up on stage, handed you a microphone. You know, and we'd have 100 to 200 people there. You know, meeting each other and having coffee. So yeah, the fact that we've all had to get comfortable with this scenario is it's very real. What about what are you seeing, Sinead?
There as well. It's interesting that the scenario has changed, and actually, because people are so different, this new virtual situation actually suits some people more than the in-person, and vice versa. So it has been an interesting time. I think in terms of the market, the recruitment market, locally in Ireland and also sort of more widely, it's the busiest I've seen in 10 years in recruitment. It's just absolutely frantic, and the war for talent has never been hotter. So it's a good environment to be a candidate, for sure. And I think sort of what's interesting playing into that is the fact that skills or experience and roles are becoming out of date so quickly with the digital world that we live in now. So companies are shifting to look at skills and talent and potential rather than just, what is your experience? What are the bullet points on your CV? So that's kind of creating a brand new scenario that we've never seen before, where hopefully it would open up for candidates who are maybe wanting to change career, take things in a different direction, start a career. The scope is much bigger now because organizations should be looking at people's potential and their skills and talents rather than what they've done in their sort of previous careers.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. That, it's interesting because I say to my kids all the time, they're young, and I've said to them, look, you could easily live another 100 years, and you could have 5 or 10 careers in that time. So to take it easy, go after whatever it is you want to do. Take your time. Find what you're interested in. There's loads of time to explore and learn and learn new things. So yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Claire, if I can get you to jump on, what's your perspective on where we currently are?
Yeah, to be honest, Rowley, I agree with what's been said so far. In tech, I can really see that the time to hire has been significantly reduced because of virtual interviewing. So that's really meant that companies have been able to open their headcount and get people hired in some cases half the time that it took before. So that's something that's standing out to me. And also that, kind of like to Sinead's point, it's a very candidate-led market at the moment, because in tech anyway, we don't necessarily have our swanky offices to show off and our free snacks and all this other. You really have to take the company at face value and actually learn about the values and having conversations with the people that you're talking to and really see if it's a good fit for you, because it's a two-way street. You're absolutely looking for the right employer as much as they're looking for the best candidate. So I think someone did ask a question around red flags sort of to look out for when you're interviewing with a company, which we can talk about. But I agree with everything that everybody else has said. It is a really crazy time, but it's also a good time because there is a lot of open roles, lots of hiring. There seems to be a lot of money in the country again, so I think it's really positive.
Yeah, no, that's what we're seeing, is that it's very candidate led, and kind of it's candidate focused at the moment. Multiple people are getting multiple offers and having to make choices when they're in kind of contract discussion with people. So that's definitely hearing the same again. While I have you there, if it's okay, Claire, can I ask you the first question that's come in?
Of course.
So the question, and it might help that you're working for a tech firm. The question is, do advances in artificial intelligence in interviews and the job application process mean that we should act differently?
So this is a really interesting question, and a lot of people may not even be aware of this, that there are actual artificial intelligence interview tools. And these tools basically allow machines and robots and computers to perform tasks that us as humans would usually do. Now, when you hear the term artificial intelligence, it can be a bit off-putting. But if we just break it down to the basics, this looks like maybe a chatbot. So I haven't actually experienced this before, but I know it's really popular in the US. Actually, 83% of companies in the US are using some form of artificial intelligence in their interviewing, which is really interesting. But sometimes you might go on to a careers website and you want to apply for a page, and a little chat box will pop up, and there'll actually be a chat bot, so a robot talking to you. Now, you may not even realize this because, they're just having general chit chat, but they might ask you, how many years experience do you have? What intrigues you about the role? They'll ask you some specifics. And what that will do is that will help the recruiter sort of narrow down the candidates, because, an interviewer might get 300 CVs. And I think artificial intelligence is there to kind of take some of the work out of that. So a chatbot is one example. Another one might be a tool which screens CVs. So the recruiter doesn't have to do it. The tool will do it for it and look for like keywords maybe that are in the job description, but also in the person's CV. So yes, there is artificial intelligence tools that are being used. You may not even be aware, so don't get, sort of turned off by it. And I think, to be honest, what's important, I wouldn't change, the way I'm communicating when I'm talking to a chatbot. I think the main piece of information that I would have is use data wherever you can. So I have 6 years experience. I looked after a merger that saved the company €1 million. Try and use data where you can so that it kind of takes out the nitty gritty and sort of pulls out the most important bits of data. But to be honest, when it comes down to it, if you're successful with all these different steps, you are going to get to talk to a recruiter or a hiring manager. It is going to be an actual human that determines the decision of whether you're going to be hired or not. I think now they're just trying to make these processes a little bit easier for recruiters, because it's just mammoth, like the amount of CVs one might get in for a role. So I wouldn't do anything too differently, and just kind of give the facts, and then hopefully you'll get to have a face-to-face conversation with someone where you can really shine.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And if anything, our responses are more recorded if we're having those conversations. Like, they may be able to go back and look through the chat log, or actually, Paul, you were saying earlier on that you'd received a whole pile of kind of pre-recorded video interviews.
Yeah, currently
and that's a little bit of a change as well, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. Like the way the public service and the civil service have gone in terms of recruitment, that everything is online at the moment. And like even yesterday, I was looking at, working on some interviewing of candidates for the civil service graduate grades. So there's a competition going on at the moment, and next week I'll be doing a full week of interviewing, and that is all online. And it's actually, in some ways, it's actually much better than being in a face-to-face meeting, because, stage one of the particular interviews that we do, we give the candidates the questions in advance that we're going to ask them, and they have a week to prep them and then record themselves. But they do need to be answering the questions that we have asked, as I discovered yesterday that some weren't actually doing that. But yeah, it's the automation is the way the civil service is going in relation to interviewing. But at some stage, we will be face to face, and doing a live interview with recording of preset questions is the way it's happening at the moment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to get in there and jump on that. And Barbara, if I can just ask you, so one of those questions was, do you think it's beneficial to go for interviews? We don't really think you'll get the job, and maybe that's just in order to kind of gain some experience and kind of brush up on your interview skills.
Yes, and recently I got similar question. It was, is it ethical even to go to interview when I don't really need or want the job? And I would say yes. And there's like one condition: prepare for the interview the best way you can. go to the interview the way that as if it was your dream job. Because if we don't do it, it's waste of time of the recruiter, and it's waste of our time. And if we prepare for the interview, if we do our best, there are so many benefits of it. So one is skills. Yeah, so we polish our interview approach. We can, during the interview, we can learn about ourselves, so our gaps, the way we answer questions, the feedback that we receive, where do we get stuck, what we don't feel really comfortable with, and then we can polish it. So we are upskilling ourselves while we are waiting for this opportunity, because we don't want to make these mistakes in the dream job. We just need to prepare ourselves. We want to prepare ourselves for that. The other thing is, at the end, you may find the job interesting. So it could be something there about the people, about the atmosphere, about the way the interview went, that you then think, oh, maybe this is something for me. And if you don't prepare, it's a wasted opportunity. And also there is another really important factor, is you build connections. So maybe it's not this particular job that you get or you want, but if the recruiters know you, if you make a really strong impression, if something else comes up, maybe they will reach out to you because they will remember you. And also there's a really good insight into the company culture. And again, even if not maybe for this particular job, but there may be something in the future, you may think, okay, this is a great company. This is actually something I would like to keep an eye on. It was not the best culture. They didn't treat me well, so I don't really want to go into this company. And last thing, it's about your learning process. So you, during the interview, you learn about the questions. You learn what the recruiters really want to hear. You also learn to listen, because what many people struggle with they are so prepared with the standard questions that they have in mind, with some of the cliche answers, that they don't really listen to what the recruiter is saying or is asking. And it's also a skill to just kind of calm down and get out of our heads and just listen to what the question really is about, to be able to answer powerfully. And those are elements that are really, really contributing to a successful interview process. It's all the lessons.
And as Paul was saying, even when people had a week to prepare to answer the question, they didn't answer they weren't even answering the right question. Actually, I was just talking to one of the mums at our kids' school, and she was saying that she has a friend who's a serial interviewer. Like, he goes to multiple interviews a month, not because he's looking to get the job, but more because he's networking. He gets to meet interesting people, that he learns something about the company, and once in a while he finds something interesting and he might go and do. I also think it helps you as a person to understand your value, and you continue to make a choice of going, am I in the right place? And you're able to kind of live on that and go, yeah, actually, I love my job, and here's why. And you're able to choose again and again and again to continue to do your job with the same kind of energy and motivation, and go, hey, the grass isn't greener, on the other side. So I think there's a balance to be struck. I think multiple interviews a month might be overdoing it, but certainly if you're looking at it. Following on from something that we came up with earlier, Sinead, if I can ask you, one of the questions is, how difficult is to start a career at 40?
Not difficult at all, you would hope. So I guess I'm understanding the question to be if you haven't been working before. So there's two sides. You could be starting, or you could have taken a break and be restarting. But I suppose, as I touched on earlier, in the landscape that we find ourselves at the moment, in the job market that we find ourselves at the moment, their demand really outstrips supply in terms of talent. And we're shifting to looking at people's talents and skills. So that has made most organizations a lot more flexible in terms of what they're looking at, in terms of a candidate. And really, I mean, they're going to cast a broader net. So I think as a candidate, there's a few different ways you could approach it. We at Fidelity, we work with the IDA and we run apprenticeship programs. So that's kind of a supported return to work where you're studying and working at the same time. But I know Solus also do a really good scheme as well. You can do a course with work placements to give you a flavour of what it's like to get back in there. But I would say as an individual, if you're thinking of starting a career, the first place to start is think about, well, what do I want to do? What am I good at? And, you know, I guess talk to people, find out what we call your super strengths are, because you want to start a career in something that you enjoy, and typically we enjoy what we're good at. So if you can kind of try and identify that and then be flexible. So okay, well, these are my talents. These are the things I want to focus on. But there's all these different directions I could go with these, so be quite flexible. Try, if you can, in sort of, if there's anyone in your circle, it's great to have a mentor to help you with both trying to figure that out, and then when you get into that job search, to support you through the interview process and support you through that whole application process before the interview process. There's mentoring circles online as well, so they're a really, really good place to start in terms of support. Yeah, but I mean, I would say definitely now is probably a great time to be looking to start a career at any age, and I would strongly encourage it.
Yeah, and with the, like, if you're able to communicate your kind of transferable skills, and maybe, you know, you're a lifelong learner, or maybe you've done a little bit of kind of work or research, you know, in the area, I think to be able to communicate that, you know, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
I mean, that's what organizations want. They want people who are willing to learn, because things are changing so quickly. So that's, if you can demonstrate that, then you're doing really well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Paul, if I can come back to you and kind of ask, do you have any advice on managing excess nerves? We're going to kind of get into a section where we might kind of dive in a little bit more into kind of the intricacies or setup of you know, of what an actual interview is, rather than the bigger picture. How do you encourage people to do that, or even do it yourself?
Yeah, well, stuff that I have done myself on foot of good input from others. When you think of an interview, the interviewer is going to basically try and form three pictures of you, or they form three pictures of you. One is based on your form or your application, your CV. Another is based on your appearance when they actually get to see it face to face. And then the third picture is in relation to how you sound, how you present. So there's those three pictures. The interviewer will try and hopefully all those three pictures will marry together, so they don't have this internal struggle going on, that you're very professional on your CV, but when you appear you look like a dog's dinner. You know, they don't want that. They want everything to flow together in terms of what you appear on your form, what you appear visually, and then how you sound. Now, when you think about that, what goes onto your CV, how you actually appear at an interview, and how you sound are all within your control. And that is a huge amount of control that you have to give a really good impression at the start of an interview. So if you put in a really professional CV, show up in a way that you feel confident in yourself in terms of your dress, your appearance, the background that you have, just how you appear visually, and then how you actually present yourself, and you contextualize yourself into that particular interview, so you don't arrive and say, "Hi guys," you know, it's a professional in terms of what you say. And if you can marry those three, which are all within your control, you have a fabulous start to an interview, and your interview board are at peace, because you've married what you've submitted in a written form, what you've submitted in terms of a visual, and then how you speak. So that's just one tip in terms of at the start of an interview and calming your nerves, because there's a lot of stuff that is within your control.
Right. At some point near the end of this, we're going to come back. There's a whole bunch of civil service questions there for you in the comments. So have a quick look at those, and we'll do a quick fire round when we get to the end. One of the questions we got, Claire, was specifically about when there's multiple interviews on the screen, like, where do I look, and where do I focus my attention?
Yeah, that's a funny one because it always depends like what tool you're using. I mean, I'm personally used to Zoom, and I know this probably sounds ridiculous, but I just look at myself. I find that if you're too busy, like, trying to focus on if you've got multiple people, it's kind of distracting. So I think picking one point and just focusing on that and listen, I think it's a little bit easier to focus on yourself because you're not distracted then and you can actually think about the answers that you're giving. So I wouldn't get like too caught up in it. I wouldn't say like unless you're looking all over the place, that would be quite obvious. But I wouldn't get too concerned about that because I think with this sort of virtual interviewing, people are used to it now and they're used to, like, for example, I'm just seeing what I'm doing now. I'm looking at myself probably because it's just easier for me to focus on what I'm saying and I'm not having to look anywhere else. So yeah, I wouldn't get too concerned, but that's probably one of the easiest approaches to take. Look at yourself.
And a tip. Oh, sorry. A tip I have for that is now I have 7 screens in front of me, and you and all your faces are only on one of them. But so there's lots of things for me to look at. But for me, I try to look at the camera, and one way to do that on Zoom or somewhere else is actually to try and move your face or your video as close to the top of the screen and the camera as possible. So you're actually, because somebody looking at, like, any of the interviewers, all they can see is what you're looking at, and if you're looking at the camera, you're looking at them. So for me, it's like, and I've sometimes used to put like a little green arrow kind of pointing at the camera. And my wife, when she records something, she's doing the same thing. She's got a little arrow pointing at the screen. Sorry, Barbara, you were going to say something?
Yeah, just something to keep in mind, that it's actually easier to have a connection with multiple people during an interview because you just look, as you said, at your camera, and what they see is you look at them. Yes, everyone individually. So it's not that you have to jump between faces. You just do it like in one position, and everyone sees you in front of them.
And they don't know what you're looking at. If you're looking straight at the screen, and if you're looking at something else, like I'm trying to read comments, I'm trying to read the questions over here on one screen. So there's lots of different things going on. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. Great. While I have you there, Barbara, can you kind of maybe help us kind of think about, like, how can we better make a connection with people that are interviewing us? Is there a way that we can kind of build that rapport and build that connection?
Yes, there's a few things that we already mentioned. It's like the technicalities. Yeah. So some of them are make sure that you are fully present, that you are there. There are no distractions. That you show your face and you show your body, that you are not in the shadow, because obviously the communication is about interaction. And because we only show the upper part of our body, we need to use the opportunity to be visible and to show our expression, to show our smile and the energy. So it's a little bit limited during the video call, but it's possible to actually show the positive emotions. I mentioned before also the fact of listening, because the interview is not only about answering questions, it's also about listening to the questions and listening to the recruiter to figure out how to modify or how to share facts about your experience, about things that you did, the way that the recruiter can see, okay, this is a person I'm looking for. Yes, because you can look at your experience from different angles, and the same job can be shown a different way. So it's really important to know what the company is looking for, to know and demonstrate that you know what they are doing, that you know what the role is about, that you know what the product or service that you will take care of are about, so that you did your homework, because this way you show that you care, that you prepared in advance. So this way you build good communication with the recruiters, because you demonstrate that you are into it, that you want this job, that you make a conscious decision to go to this interview because you are excited about the company, you are excited about the role, and not that, okay, I just need a job. Yeah, so this is sometimes it's tricky, and I have clients who said, I was applying for so many jobs and I went to so many interviews, but I didn't get it. They didn't invite me the second time. And we were going and trying to find the root cause for that and what was happening. And very often they said, yeah, I'm just applying for so many jobs because I just need a job. Or I just applying for this one, but then I'm asking questions around something else, other opportunities. And this way, we just show that we don't really care about this particular job, and we actually should change the perspective. We should think about how much we want this particular one and demonstrate our interest. And I think when we master this, when we focus on that, we build a connection. Yes, because it's genuine interest and then genuine excitement.
Rowley, could I build on just what Barbara was saying there? Like, I was doing some interviewing yesterday, and it was amazing the difference in terms of, one candidate who was using language and contextualizing what they were saying to the civil service world. And I had instant rapport with them, whereas the candidates that were using terminology and language that and concepts that were alien to the civil service, and they shouldn't have been using them. For I'll give you a very brief example. Somebody was saying, "Oh yeah, one way to generate employee engagement is to give staff bonuses and pay them extra money," and the civil service isn't. You can't do that in the civil service. There's no bonuses at Christmas. But this person hadn't researched that and was, trying to sell this as a way of generating civil service employee engagement. They hadn't researched who we are as an organization and hadn't thought, how will I hear that as an interviewer on behalf of the civil service? So a way of building rapport within the interview is contextualizing your language to that of the company or whoever the prospective employer is, as much as you can do that.
That makes a lot of sense. Like using the language, the terminology of the company that you're going for. That's super helpful. And you'll only have read that in the job spec. I mean, they'll be very clearly talking about their customer, their player, their patient, their participants, whatever name they use for the public that they engage with. And you need to use that term and understand why it's important to them, that they have a specific way of of discussing it. That's great. While I have you there, Paul, just thinking about one of the questions is like, how do you impress a hiring manager with your interest and enthusiasm without like it coming on too strong? And because the difference between confidence and cocky can be a hard line to hit when you're in an interview scenario.
Yeah. Certainly within a civil service context, obviously you want whatever you're saying to be relevant to the role, and leave subjectivity out of it. None of this, I would love the job. What you're saying is, I am qualified for the job because of A, B, and C, rather than trying to win the job by enthusiasm. Obviously, you can show your enthusiasm in other ways. So in terms of, I have, in terms of the particular role that you're offering, I have, worked in this role before. I have volunteered to, in this role, showing an interest that is above and beyond an employment role, if you can do that. And I think that will suggest enthusiasm rather than just being, overly gushing about the company and saying that they're the best company in the world and you've always wanted to work for them. I'd leave that aside and definitely go for something more objective in relation to your interest in the particular role or the area of business that you're wanting to move into.
Something that I'd build on with that actually as well, if you don't mind, Roddy. I think asking questions about the role, good questions, shows your enthusiasm. So ask, if I was to get this role, what are the current challenges that I would need to prioritize? What does this role look like for the next 12 months? Which other stakeholders in the business would I be engaging with in this role? So really showing your understanding of the role and, showing that you are super interested, but also you want to know what it's going to look like. Because I know, for example, that a HR business partner, does not have the same roles and responsibilities in every company. So making sure you understand the differentiation and asking those questions as well, because I know I've said it before, but you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you.
And that,
And this
that
is a
actually
good
leads
point.
us back.
Yeah, sorry, girl.
Go on, sorry, Barbara, yeah.
Just to add to this, the way you ask questions, it's also a way to demonstrate your experience. Because if you have experience in a field, you know what you should be asking for. Yes, if it's a leading position, you ask about the team, you ask about the objectives, you ask about the strategy, and in different roles, you just ask different questions. So you don't necessarily have to list all the experiences. By asking the right questions, you are also demonstrating that you know what you should be asking and you know what you are talking about.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I definitely want to cover this next topic. It's the thorny topic of salary. So if I get you on for a sec, Sinead, we had a great conversation in our Jobcare live session earlier in the week, and there's quite a lot of questions came up in interviews about that. So Sinead, just you said you would be able to help us with this. If asked about salary expectations, how do you kind of backtrack if you've kind of oversold or undersold yourself?
Yeah, no worries, and apologies. I'm coming in and out. My internet is this is actually a valuable lesson.
Oh, as she says that, there we go. Her internet is gone. Would any of you guys like to talk? Actually, you know what? I'm gonna loop back to you, Claire. You said about earlier on. You said about it being a two-way process, and it just being about and how do we figure out if there's any red flags when we've worked with a company? How do we, or when we're interviewing with a company? How do we? How would you know if a red flag from something that the company's saying or doing, or something you see on Glassdoor? Like,
yeah,
can you talk to that?
I think this is really important. So we might see a role and we might apply for the job and think this is perfect for me. But when it comes down to it, when if you get the job and you're 3 months in and the company is terrible, you want to have avoided that. So a few things. Be aware of the organization of the recruitment process, the initial interaction that you have, and then, the recruiters getting back to you in a timely fashion, making sure that the interviewers and the interview makes sense, it has a good flow. And also the types of questions being asked by the interview. You want to make sure that they're not asking any questions that would be, anything around discrimination. They shouldn't be asking you about your age, your marital status, whether you've got children, anything like that. That's a total red flag. Also, I think making sure that there's consistency. If you're interviewing with a few different people for the role, making sure that there's consistency with what the expectation is. So one interviewer might be saying, okay, you're going to do this, this, and this. How do you feel about that? And another interviewer might be saying, oh, well, actually, no, you're doing the opposite of that. And we need this person to do A, B, and C. So making sure that they're aligned on what the expectation is of the role. Again, seems like something really simple, but you should 100% always get a standard employment contract that you should be signing before you take any role. And feel free to take a few days when you get your contract and read through it. Like, it's not necessarily going to be a load of legal jargon. There should be the basics in there around like holidays and compensation and sick leave and all of that. And then also the last thing I'll say is making sure that they're transparent around benefits. So, if you're lucky enough to get the option of like healthcare or pension, making sure that they know their stuff and they can answer your questions. And also, just one other thing, have a look on Glassdoor, because that's where the truth is. And if you go on and you see a really low rating, it's not to say that you shouldn't, interview. I do feel like companies can change. They can hire in new people all the time. But I would definitely be aware of those Glassdoor reviews and see what people are saying. But I think you want to have a good interview experience, because that's your first impression of the company. So, they're sort of some of the things that I'd be looking out for.
And there's a phrase I've heard before, and it's you get hired by a company, but you leave a manager. And often I think what when I look on Glassdoor, I often go, that's about a relationship in a specific team. I mean, it might be like a global, like a really bad feeling across everything, but that usually comes from a person, because it's often about our relationships and how we connect and engage in those things. You know what I mean? So for me, like what you read on Glassdoor it's kind of like a hospital. Like the people who want to go and rant will be on Glassdoor saying something, but it could be 4,000 other like happily employed people who are really enjoying their work, and they're not looking at Glassdoor until they're thinking about leaving. They're not going, I've got a free 10 minutes, I'm going to go and like write a review on how awesome it is to work at this company, right?
Rowley, just a quick qualifier. That phrase that you use, you join a company, you leave a manager.
Yep.
Sometimes you leave a manager because they've been so good in mentoring you and training you up that they get you another job. So it's not like when you see an area where there's a high turnover, it doesn't necessarily mean it's an awful area to work in. It could actually mean there are great managers in there prepping people for the next stage of their career. So just a word of caution on that.
I 100%, and I love seeing the people that work in my teams moving on to their dream jobs and pursuing the thing that they want to do. Like it just gives, it's an opportunity for all. While I have you there, I'm going to do a quick fire Ask Paul about the civil service question. So first one should be relatively easy. Anna asks, do you have to speak Irish to apply for a job in the civil service?
No.
Okay, great.
Not at all. But there are opportunities for Irish speakers. There's various vacancies, and sometimes they're in Europe as well on behalf of the Irish government. So it is actually a niche area. And given that Irish is a recognised language in the EU, there is probably careers there for lots of people that have cúpla focal.
Great. Excellent. Christine asks, as the civil service jobs are open for anyone outside, why is it that with people 20 years experience start with the basic salary?
That is because that within the civil service there are a number of grades, and there are salary scales within those grades. So unless it's at the very top of the civil service where you're going in, say, to head up a government department, where you would have some leeway to negotiate, there is a requirement that people start at the first point of a salary scale in each role. That's national wage agreements agreed with unions. There isn't leeway on that. You can't go into the civil service and say I've X number of years experience and I have these number of qualifications, therefore I am entitled to. That's not the way the system works. Yeah,
that makes sense. And question from Liz. Do civil service offer flexible working for new recruits?
Yes, there are a whole heap of family-friendly initiatives available in the civil service, and like I know, one of the ones will be blended working. So perhaps as we are doing now, like a lot of civil servants are doing maybe a day in the office and 4 days at home. Some are not. Like myself, I haven't been back to the office since I think last Christmas. Just after last Christmas, the last time I was back in the office. So there's a heap of sort of a flexible working arrangements, job sharing, working part-time, being able to take the summer off, career breaks, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, so the civil services is loaded with family-friendly initiatives.
Great. And last one for now, and that's until I scroll down and find some more. Can you talk about the civil service approach to hiring contractors? And would you consider if you had an interim role, could it be a route to a permanent position? How does that work?
Okay, a couple of things here. Generally, if somebody is in as a contractor, and then they wanted to have a permanent position in the civil service, they would need to apply for one of the advertised positions. And I would advise anyone interested in a position in the civil service to register with the Public Appointment Service. Their website is publicjobs.ie, and you can register there, and you can indicate what particular areas, either the public or civil service, you have an interest in or qualifications in. And then as jobs will come up, as recruitment campaigns start for a particular thing, they will just notify you automatically, and then you can view the job spec, and if that's something you're interested in, complete an application form.
Great. And Caroline's got a last one for you, and then I'll ask questions to the ladies before we wrap up. If you're currently working in a civil service as a temp for 9 months and the previous person retired, how is it filled? So I checked with HR and I was told I could apply. And that's kind of to the point you're kind of already making, is that there's always and I think one of the things, and I'm not sure if it's blatantly clear, is they have to do everything to be 100% fair to all the candidates. And there's a really clear criteria for why people get the job, what's the thing, and there's a really clear scoring basis, so that there's no opportunity to come back and go, I was discriminated because of X, Y, or Z. That's what the
one of the guiding principles of the civil service is integrity in terms of what we do, and transparency. So you will not find the case where my dad works in the civil service and he was able to get me in. There's none of that going on. It is totally level playing field. It's a bit like the Leaving Cert. Anybody can do it, and if they get the points, they'll get to college, irrespective of whether they're living in the flats in Joe McDermott Street, or they're coming down off Dalkey to do the Leaving Cert. It's a level playing field, and the civil service is like that. Equal opportunity for everybody. And like, one of the driving values in the civil service at the moment is in the whole EDI space, equality, diversity and inclusion. So treating people fairly, equally, and giving equal opportunity is one of the values that is more and more coming to the fore in terms of civil service recruitment.
I'm glad that you mentioned it. I'm going to actually ask Charles' question to Claire, if that's okay. Paul mentioned inclusion, but Charles can ask, how do you ensure inclusion of opportunity? Note, equality is a bare minimum requirement, but not the same as inclusion, diversity. And I know that in a lot of the tech firms that we work with, and certainly I know with Zendesk, it's something that I've seen an awful lot communicated around. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is just absolutely huge. DE&I is no longer just this phrase that's thrown around. Companies really need to show data behind their initiatives, and they need to have initiatives like in the first place. So I can only really speak to Zendesk because that's what I know the most about. But we have a DE&I, like a mission statement, and we also have a specific website just focused on DE&I and what we do. So we have a lot of employee resource groups. So maybe those for those that are parents, others for those for Black employees, others that have like religious beliefs. So we've loads of that. We also have a lot of flexibility for those that have, I suppose, that need some sort of like accommodation set for them. So those that have disabilities, if they need a certain accommodation set, we're almost overly doing what we can for that. That's always something to look out for. We've lots of flexibility in terms of working hours. Our maternity and paternity leave and benefits are phenomenal. I think with COVID and with everything else, we've introduced a lot of mental health assistance. So, making sure that those that are struggling a little bit, that we have resources to help those people. And also just making sure that we're, when it comes down to it, you're always going to hire out of a group of candidates, you're always going to hire the best person for the job. But it's where you make sure that you have a diverse, your job is posted to where a diverse group of people is going to see it. So not just on Indeed.com or Monster or any of these career sites. You need to make sure that you're advertising jobs where there's a diverse group of people that's going to see it. So I think asking questions about inclusion and equity are totally valid. And I think a good interviewer will have some stats. What's the gender ratio, like men to women, also things that are a bit more specific. So what percentage of managers are male versus female, Black versus white, those sorts of things, all of that. Really, I know, a lot of companies maybe don't have the luxury of having a DE&I team dedicated to that. Luckily at Zendesk we do, but I think this is becoming the norm now, and I definitely think these questions should be coming up in an interview at some stage to make sure. So don't be afraid to ask those things. I do know a specific case at Zendesk where we have an employee that has a disability, and every month we check in with them to make sure that nothing has changed, that what we have provided is what they need. And, you know, things like that make such a difference. And that employee obviously has a great experience because they can get their work done and not have to worry about those other things because they're looked after in the background.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. Just a quick one to Barbara, because it's 11 o'clock. Simone asked, is there any difference in preparation for a second interview as opposed to the first one?
Obviously, we know after the first interview a little bit more about the company and the culture. And so we can polish our approach, and we can polish the way we speak, and we know what were the gaps possibly we would like to address at the second interview. But very often the second interview is kind of a next level. And sometimes there is a presentation to be prepared. There is maybe a role play or different stakeholders. So it's very important to, with this knowledge that you gather through the first interview, you just prepare better and more powerfully for the second one. And so you gather a lot of information, about yourself and the company and the recruiting culture. So you can use the insights to show up even more powerfully in the second one.
And I think
Excellent.
as well.
Thank you for that. Yeah, come Paul. Yeah.
I think as well with that, Rolly, like if you're called back for a second, for your first interview, you want them. For the second interview, they want you.
Good point.
I think it changes the dynamics somewhat. Now, it doesn't mean you go into the second interview all sort of cocky and, here I am. But it does change the dynamics. So you need to factor that into, how you approach the interview and the confidence that you go in the second time. Whereas you might have been a bit apprehensive the first time. I think you can certainly move in with confidence the second time. Greater degree of poise, of presence, knowing that you're somebody that the company is interested in.
Yeah. And there's the saying that words create worlds. It means that what we focus on, what we think, what we tell ourselves creates our reality. So the fact that we got invited to the second interview can contribute to our confidence and help us calm down a little bit and then prepare for the interview better, because you get external confirmation, not only your internal confirmation, but external confirmation that you are a good fit for the role. So let's use it.
100%. It's gone 11 o'clock. I still have a page of questions on this screen, and there's a ton of questions in the comments. So thank you to everyone who submitted questions. We were never going to get through them all in an hour, but we certainly tried. Thank you, Barbara, Claire, and Paul, and also to Sinead, whose Wi-Fi has been up and down for her. Thank you all for your contribution today. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you all again soon. Thanks for your time. Thank you for joining us this morning for this panel session on interviews. I hope it was helpful for you and you found something that was kind of engaging and spoke a little bit to your situation in preparation for interviews. We have more and more kind of help with this on any of our courses. So if you haven't been on our Job Seekers course or our JobNet course, please feel free to visit jobcare.ie to find out information there and to make an application. We'll be running courses from the start of January, so get your application in. We'd love to see you and help you in any way we can. Really appreciate your time this morning, and we're going to wrap it up there. Hope you all have a super day. Thanks very much for your time. Bye now.